All right, let's get started.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. It's Tori O'Neill, the founder of the Mighty Dames, and I am joined today by someone I've met a couple times on the internet, on the Instagram. Won't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Yo, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me, Tori. This is an honor and a privilege to be here. My name is Kola Shippentower Thompson. To Token Tipki Wash Tohaya. My Indian name is Tohaya. I come from the Nishiawe country in Eastern Oregon. And I mean, let's get into this. I'm really
All
excited.
right, dope. Like that was already like so much better than my intro. But yeah, so what we're here to talk about today is something a little bit different from the Mighty Dames. Everyone knows us from our community and our food-based rash guards, which did not intend to do that, but it seems like that is our alley right now. But those who've been with us for a while, they know that the Mighty Dames, first and foremost, was always a community to do for other people. We didn't want to just be another jiu-jitsu brand selling merch. We wanted to really make an impact, not just online, but within our local communities. And I think you actually were the inspiration for this whole collection we're about to talk about, and that is our Affirm and Amplify collection. So the whole purpose of this is to bring awareness, but also fundraise for underserved communities and marginalized people. I think often we get so wrapped up in jiu-jitsu that we sometimes forget the power that it has in just its pure reach and in the communities that we can touch. And I always wondered why we didn't do more to tap into, communities that aren't the most, the first ones to pop into people's minds, like, law enforcement or veterans, or not there's anything wrong with supporting those, but there's so many great communities that could also benefit from this. So you sent me a message, a few months ago about if we could collaborate on something. And why don't you tell everyone exactly why you reached out to me to begin with? Like, what was that whole thing about?
All right. So my first interaction with your company, with your brand, was when I saw the thick and juicy rash
Oh
guard.
yeah, the people.
I'm like, yo, like us big girls were not represented as much as the smaller girls. Like, shout out to the small girls that can handle rolling with like all of us heavier people, all of the guys, and able to survive when they're rocking like 135. Like, shout out to them.
Yeah, it's not
But
easy.
it's a rare thing to find females who are over like 165 pounds that are in this sport, representing, competing, training, traveling, doing all the things. Because as you start to progress and level up in this sport, it gets harder and harder to find competition.
Yeah.
So, being a brown belt in jiu-jitsu under Professor Gustavo Prias of Siri BJJ, I have gotten to a point, and this started even when I was a blue belt, is I'm a heavyweight. So I usually walk around about 185. So even then I was having a hard time finding people to compete with, people to roll with. And then got my purple, and it was even more difficult. There'd be competitions I'm going to and I don't have anybody to roll with. And now that I'm a brown belt, I'm like, yo, like I'm probably really gonna have to hold off for like super fights or the really big events like IBJJF or places like that, because I'll even say it here is that the last competition I went to, there was nobody there for me. The highest ranking belt for females was blue belt, and the heaviest girl besides me, she was maybe like 155. So I'm like, this is really, really hard. It's a really difficult sport because we're already putting ourselves out there so much in just such a difficult sport. But then to be one of the bigger girls, it makes it even harder. And so when I saw your rash guard, I started seeing it pop up across my Instagram feed. I think it was like on my For You page, but I started seeing multiple people wearing this thick and juicy rash guard. And I was like, yo, it's got peaches on it. Like I teach a dance fitness class called Turn Up. And it's like, we're always talking about like, yo, the peach, the booty, like we're out here twerking, we're working it. And I was like, I have to have this rash guard. So I know that it was like out of stock. You guys were waiting for your next shipment of them. So I was like, put me on the list. I definitely want one. So I wore that rash guard a couple of times, like to different gyms that I traveled to. And, it caught some people's attention. They're like, yo, I want a rash guard like that. And then I wear it to competitions. And then even then people are like, I need that. I want that. And I thought it was really cool because now it's telling me that people see how important it is for us to embrace our power and our strength in our size.
Absolutely.
Because I've gone my entire life saying, you need to be smaller, you need to be skinnier, you need to be lighter. And it's so difficult to be okay with being a fuller woman. Yep. And so I thought it was really cool. I bought the rash guard, been wearing it, been repping it, rocking it, love it. And, you know, not only am I a minority in this sport in terms of my size and weight class and skill level, I'm also a minority because almost every single room that I walk into, I'm probably only the only Indigenous person that you're going to see there. I didn't start meeting other Indigenous people in this sport until literally 2021. When I went to a competition, another girl saw me and she was like, "Are you Native?" Because she saw one of the t-shirts that I was wearing. And I said, "Yes." And it was kind of like, "Are you?" And then next thing you know, we're like, "Yo,
best friends.
Like, where have you been at?" So being an Indigenous person in this sport has been really difficult because not a lot of people understand. And I mean, I know that you'll understand, you'll sympathize with me on this, is that representation matters. Absolutely. Being able to see someone that looks like you brings some type of comfort and lets you know that you're not alone. Absolutely. And so with that being in such a difficult sport and coming from such a smaller community, I started realizing that this is probably the perfect place that I could be, you know, advocating for a cause that I've been doing kind of like on the back burner. And not a lot of people knew that I was doing this advocacy work with MMIWR, which is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Relatives or Relations. And so it's this rising crisis among our people that not a lot of people know about. The violence against women in our communities is horrific and it's terrifying. And it's such a harsh reality that I face every single day that I step out, even just my front door, that I might not make it back home. So for me to feel so comfortable to travel, to train with other people, to compete all over the country and be so comfortable doing so, knowing the statistics are against me, makes it that much more powerful. And you know, the crazy thing is that in such a small community, we're so supportive of one another, is that when I go out and I compete and I win, it's not just me winning. It's my elders, it's my kids, it's my family. And even just talking about it, it makes me emotional because it's not just that, it doesn't stop there. It's generations before me. It's my ancestors winning. It's them with their prayers and their dreams coming true, that we're not going to stop.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned that, because sometimes it's hard to speak when you're the only like minority. I don't like to say use the term minority. I use marginalized community. But when you're that only person in a room, it's hard to explain to other people who don't have the similar lived experience to you how important just showing up is, not only to you but to other people. I didn't understand the true power of representation until I got out of college and I worked at a nonprofit. Reading. And my job was to go to low-income childcare centers and read books to kids. I had volunteers who read to children. And I was in these schools where they were primarily, Latin communities, African-American communities, Asian communities in some respects, but all of the books were Caucasians. And something as simple as like seeing their representation in a book wasn't there. And when we would find a book with a person of color in it, the kids were like, oh, wow. And if a child can realize that it's so young, I was like, this clearly impacts us greater than we think about. So man, kudos to you for, like you said, it's scary to put yourself out there in any kind of respect. And even like you said, traveling around as a woman, period, is scary sometimes. And then when you add all the additional factors and, like you said, just the statistics that come behind you as an Indigenous woman, like it can be I can't even imagine how terrifying that is. But like, it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there and to stand proudly and loudly for the causes that you want to. Because what I found is, not to ruffle any feathers, but it seems like people are fine with you coming into what they perceive as their space if you don't if you're not too loud about it, about who you are. But the moment you start ringing your own, self-awareness bell and trying to attract other people to come in, that's when some people are kind of like, what are you doing? So man, like I said, it's great that you did that. And like you said, it's more than just you. It's everyone who's come before you and the people who are going to see you, that's going to inspire them to, try it out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, to answer your question, it was seeing that you're representing a group of people in this sport that kind of get shoved off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Like the bigger, fuller women, the heavier women that have a hard time finding competition because everybody wants us to be smaller. So I saw that, and I saw how many women were coming together because you had some other events going on. I was like, yo, that'd be like super dope to go to. I really want to go. But I had another conference at the same time. So I was like, I'm not gonna be able to make it to that. But I thought about that. And there had been a couple other companies I had reached out to before, asking them if they'd be willing to customize a rash guard for me that would represent this rising crisis in my community. So when I reached out to you, it was kind of just like a feeler, like, will they take this on? Will they say, yeah, we could definitely do that? And as soon as you started talking to me about it, you're like, yo, we'd love to. And we started talking about designs. Like, I'm sitting there talking to like my people, like, yo, it could be happening. Like a simple thing, like a lot of people, and I know a lot of people in the jiu-jitsu community are gonna be like, it's a rash guard, like, yo, calm down. But it's like, no, this is a huge thing, because like when I compete, I show up and I fucking show out. Like when you see me roll, like you're gonna see me roll. Like the person I'm going with, you're gonna see that they're gonna get smashed, they're gonna get dominated. You're gonna
feel you.
Yeah. And when you watch me roll, you're gonna see how unfazed I am by the difficulty of this entire situation. So whatever I'm wearing, that's what I'm representing, whatever. So it's obvious. Like you guys are going to see what I'm rocking. So if you see that red handprint on my back that says "No More Stolen Sisters," people are going to remember, don't fuck with these girls anymore. No more. And if you see it, say something, because that's the problem, is nobody wants to talk about it. So, I mean, it's funny that you bring up like ruffling feathers. That's actually what I pride myself on, is I love me a good old ruffled feather. I will do so unapologetically. And I've always like been told that I have this unique gift of being able to piss people off, but at the same time, cultivate this change where it gets people not pissed off at me, but pissed off maybe at the situation or the circumstances, and make them think, what do we need to do, or what do we need to talk about in order to cultivate that change that we're all looking for? Yeah. What do we need to do to raise that awareness? What do we need to do to start building and creating this better future for ourselves and for the people around us and those that we love? So, I mean, I love going into spaces where people are so used to the status quo, and I'm like, yo, I'm here to do something different. So do you want to write it out with me, or you want to keep doing the same exact thing you've been doing?
Absolutely. Because I think we just all in general, we get so complacent and we just get comfortable with how things are. And let's be honest, it's easier to do that, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be beneficial, So like we said, the Affirm and Amplify, the whole collection is about representing these underserved communities, and especially marginalized people. So the first one, what we did was we did our Black Lives Matter rash guard, which I was so excited to do, because with mine is I feel like oftentimes we think of, when we did the Black Lives Matter thing, it almost became a trend for 2020, and it became very like specific to which Black lives were mattering. And my whole point was, it's everything about the Black experience that matters. Our, Black women matter, Black, LGBTQ people matter. And beyond that, like Black happiness matters, Black loves matters, Black healthcare matters. There's so much more to it. So when we do this, the way that this whole project collection is going to work is every quarter, we're going to pick a new dame, and with them, they're going to select a cause, whatever cause that is near and dear to them, that is important. And in collaboration with them, we're going to design a rash guard. And I'm really leaning heavy on everyone else to like tell me what is the story you want to tell in your rash guard. Because it, like you said before, when people see that thick and juicy, or they're going to see that red handprint, people are going to wonder, like, what is that? Tell me more about it. So it's not just, Tori of the Mighty Dames designing it. It's going to be me and the individual designing it, so we can really get that story across. And so on that point, we're hitting the representation. But more than representation, I feel like this is where some people kind of fall short is you need to fundraise too. These causes need money. So 25% of all the profits that we have will go directly to a nonprofit of that person's choosing. And again, I want us to be a grassroots, smaller organization that could, where those dollars are going to impact more than a larger national one. So why don't you tell us, what organization did you pick?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think before I get into which nonprofit that I've been working with and that I'd like to have the proceeds donated to, it's important to talk about the issue.
Yes, absolutely.
That the bulk of what's going on. So for those that do not know, you can very easily Google MMIW, and what's going to pop up all over the place are going to be red handprints. It's going to be Indigenous women. It's going to be Indigenous girls. So what's happening among our people is the rates for missing and murdered people is 7 times higher than any other ethnicity or race in the world. And it's very, very scary. And so for the US, and I know the numbers are a little bit staggering for Canada, but mind you, something that's really important is the numbers that we have in place right now are incredibly inaccurate because the lack of documentation or data.
Gotcha.
So little known fact, and I think this is probably one of the most surprising things for people, is that when you go into these law enforcement databases, when they're doing their filing or when they're doing their reports and everything like that, if the officer is not mindful about how he is putting in his report, if he does not check a box where it says white Caucasian, Black American, or Latino, or Asian American, or Native American Hawaiian, or any of that, if he does not check one of those boxes, it'll automatically default to white Caucasian. So can we talk about how many times that's probably happened to where our numbers are so horribly recorded and how inaccurate they are? So the numbers that we even have right now are, a lot of them are from 2016, because the Indigenous community is now starting to take up the responsibilities on getting a lot of these numbers put in place and accurate. We've been doing a lot of work. We've been doing a lot of just wave making, and, you know, the huge thing that we've been saying right now is representation matters. So now we have Deb Howland, who's Secretary of Interior. So she's, I mean, Auntie Deb, she's in the White House. She's doing some of the things. We have also a fellow tribal member from the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, Chuck Sams, who's now the director of the national parks. And I mean, that's the first time that's ever happened. Can you
insane?
Yeah, it's always been a white man that's watching over these national parks. That doesn't make sense. So it makes more sense to have one of the original people watching over these lands.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just a lot of things are happening now. So a lot of the heavy work has been done. There's been legislation put in place to where this issue and this crisis is being taken more seriously. So for people that don't really understand that this is an absolute 110% form of genocide, and it's continuing today. So all the things that have happened before, like assimilation schools, or people know them as residential schools, that usually happen from the churches, who were also being funded by the government. Things were being shoved under the rug. It was, you know, kill the Indian, save the man. It's been like that since, you know, colonization. It's been really big and prevalent in our communities that we've been trying to maintain our strength and resiliency through every, you know, avenue and facet that we can. So with that being said, I have been so blessed and so honored to be in this work for advocacy for MMIR and just representing my people. It has personally impacted my family clear back to the 1950s. I'm pretty sure way before that. But just, you know, some of the closer cases that have happened on our reservation, where I had an aunt and cousin that were killed, and then also another cousin that was found in our river here. So, I mean, I had a lot of personal drive behind this. I had my parents kind of, you know, giving me the background, giving me the story of all the things that have happened in our family. And I'm seeing the pain in their eyes where they've never been able to talk about this. A lot of the issues that, you know, people in the BIPOC communities go through, we're told always not to talk about them. We're told, be quiet. The best thing we could do is just be quiet. Don't make waves about it. Yep. So we're reaching this point now. My dad is a residential school survivor. Like, he was a part of in that whole system where they're being beaten for speaking their language. They're being forced to cut their hair. They're being forced to forget their culture. So now we're on this, like, this huge wave of growth and progress where now he's talking about it a little bit more comfortably. He's understanding he doesn't have to look over his shoulder like someone's going to come at him in some type of way. So advocating for this cause has been really, really important to me, and I've taken it very seriously. I actually created and developed a safety plan called the Wasauta Project. Wasauta in the Umatilla language means I am rising. So it was a phrase that I coined during my fight career, which was rise above. Whatever you're going through, you can always come up on it. So created the safety plan as an immediate response to this rising crisis, and saying, we're not going to allow this system that was put in place, which in fact is working. I mean, we can't lie about that. It's doing exactly what it was made to do, but we're not going to take no for an answer anymore. We're not going to take, she's probably partying. We're not going to take, she probably found a boyfriend. We're not going to take any more of the victim blaming or the victim shaming when it comes to violent acts against women in general. So when I had initially started this project, it was, catered and tailored towards Indigenous women. But very quickly, I started finding out everyone needs this. I am a mother to an Afro-Indigenous child. My son is part Black, so I have to remember that and respect that part of his culture and his heritage. So I started including a lot of, broadening the spectrum. And then very quickly in the summer of 2021, I started to see this shift. Men wanted this too, because we have our Two-Spirit people that are saying, I even feel unsafe when I leave my home. What can I do to advocate for my personal safety?
Okay, so for those who don't know what Two-Spirit is, can you explain it briefly for us?
So it's our Indigenous people's way of calling the LGBTQ community. I love the Two-Spirit phrase because it basically means that these people are full with 2 times the amount of love than everybody else. That's why they're able to feel blessed, man. Yes. That's why they're able to feel how they feel towards anyone that they want. And they're sacred, and we got to protect them. We got to take care of them. So, but that's what Two-Spirits are, is the LGBTQ community. So we opened it up. We said, everybody should be advocating for everyone. So I even have men and boys taking this class now. And what they're doing is, if there's things that they're wanting to apply to their own lives, they're doing so, but then they're also passing on the project to a loved one, saying, hey, I got a daughter that needs this. She's in college. Or I've got my mother who lives home alone, and she needs to have a plan in case something happens. So now it's really for everyone and anyone. And when I first created this, I didn't really understand or know how it was going to go. I didn't know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're all being told, stay home, you can't go nowhere. But if one of the biggest blessings that I could identify from this entire pandemic was everything could be done virtually.
Yep.
And someone that opened my eyes to that, because, I was very closed-minded. I was like, we're all stuck in our houses. We're not going to do anything. We're all just alone now.
We all have that pandemic depression.
Yeah. It was scary. We're like, what are we going to do? I'm never going to see anyone anymore. But an individual that I met during the pandemic, her name is Jordan Daniel. So again, you can easily Google her. She became really, really known for her Boston Marathon run that she did. She wore red handprint. She dedicates a lot of her runs. She does them in prayer. And she's I want to say a 3rd generation runner. So this is her jam, is running.
Yeah.
And so she created this virtual platform in this organization called Rising Hearts. And I had a friend of mine, Akatsia Red Elk, say, hey, you need to reach out to her. You gotta give her this class. You gotta let her know that you have this going on. So I decided to start working with her. We started doing virtual classes, and it just really opened up so many avenues and opportunities. And I can't even think that they're for me. I think that they're more for our Indigenous women, because that's what I've been wanting to represent and trying to represent in my entire fight journey anyways. And so she was able to provide me with connections with even bigger organizations like MMIWRC and NCJTC. And it's just been this overflowing amount of blessings. That's been my mantra for the past couple months leading into the end of 2021 is blessings on blessings on blessings. We've been spending this entire year working, putting in the hard work, the nitty gritty, the grind. And now it's the season for just taking these blessings and sitting with them and reflecting on them. So the organization that I'd really like to have the donations go to is going to be Jordan Daniel's nonprofit organization called Rising Hearts. She advocates for a lot of different issues, but MMIW being one of the main ones, but she also is, advocating for climate change, Standing Rock, all these pipelines that are being put into place, all the, the human trafficking issues that we're facing right now, and just almost every single issue for Indigenous people you think of, she's right there. You'll always see her. She's always in the forefront and just working and trying to make the world a better place. And I can't think of any other organization that's more deserving than hers.
That's awesome. Yeah, so like we said, all the 25% of the donations will go there. We also have a link on there if you want to do direct donations. If you don't want to buy any goodies, that's fine too. We'll have some patches up there for sale as well. Actually, no, we won't have patches up there. Ignore that. I'll edit that out. Yeah, we'll have the rash guards. We're gonna start this in January, so it'll run for a couple of months. Yeah, oh my God, there's so much about what you said that I'm just like sitting here. It's just like it's circulating in my head, and I'm like, yes, she gets it. And one thing that that hit me really quickly is that with me, when I started the Mighty Dames, it was very specifically going to be for heavyweight women. I was like, yes, it's going to be us. It's our time. This is what we're going to talk about. And I want to say in the span of like within the first 3 months, I realized so quickly that it wasn't going to stay just heavyweight women. That was the main cause that I was championing it. But other people, especially it seems like other women, they tend to migrate toward communities that are othered. That they kind of feel like if they're isolated in some way, if they can find a little bit of kindred spirit within a community, they'll join it. Like we have animoids in the Mighty Dames. And what I found is they just felt the same thing, but on the opposite end. So I like this idea of having that plan that you have, that you wanted it for one community, but you found very quickly that other people can benefit from that too. And I think that's fantastic to open things up that way. I think sometimes we do get so focused on, we want to work for this cause and this is the one we want to do. And we have to be able to open our minds up to like, hey, how can this thing benefit multiple people while still helping the cause that I want to champion? So yeah. So just quickly about you. So like, how long have you been in the sport? What got you into, what started your martial arts journey?
All right, so I'll give you like the quicker version of the story because it is pretty extensive. So my oldest son, Abraham, is now 11 years old, and I started after he was about 3 months old.
Okay.
I was in a very physically, emotionally, mentally abusive relationship, and I was broken. I was struggling with my confidence, my self-esteem. I was struggling with alcoholism and obesity. I was rocking probably like 250 pounds, and I'm 5'5", so that is very obvious. Yeah, it's very obvious, and it's very, when people saw me, it was obvious that I was struggling, and it was really, really difficult. On a very last split-second decision, I am driving out of Pendleton, Oregon, heading home to the reservation. There is a donut shop on the edge of town. And I was looking over there, and I happened to see, like, just glance at the building behind it, and I saw this big sign that said MMA. And mind you, 11 years ago, this is the time where female like fighters was almost unheard of. Almost unheard of. Like they were doing underground fighting to let females fight. Like we're talking about
3-minute rounds.
Yeah, we're talking about going to Hollywood Video and finding these VHS tapes that people were recording and pushing out that way. Like it was really rare, but it was also like right around the time that, Stephan Bonner and Forrest Griffin had their huge fight that was introducing MMA to the world. So this is during that time. And so I saw the sign that said MMA, and I immediately was just like, go. And I turned. And it was weird because I was thinking like, do I want a donut right now? I kind of just want to eat something, but I glanced over there and I saw it. And so I stepped foot in that gym, told the guy what I wanted. I said, I want to try this out. And I was thinking more of the lines of self-defense. He's like, all right, bet, come back. He's like, practice is in about 2 hours. He's like, and we'll get you started. And he's kind of giving me that look of like, this girl's like full of shit. She ain't going to come back. Like she just wanted to like basically see what's up. I go home, tell my parents about it. I'm very close to my parents. Culturally, Indigenous people were always very, very close to our parents. Like our grandparents live in our homes, like clear until they go on to the next place. And it's just, it's just how we are. Gotcha. And so I let them know what I saw, what I was thinking of, and very strange. My mom didn't have a whole lot to say, but my dad was very, you're not going to compete in this. If you need to take this for self-defense, go ahead and do what you need to do, but you are not going to compete in this. He was very like behind the idea, which was weird to me because he trained my brothers in boxing. I'm like, I thought you'd be excited. Okay. But one thing led to another. My coach ended up seeing this natural ability to fight, gave me a call up one day and was like, yo, we had a girl back out of this fight over here about 45 minutes from town, and they're looking for someone to fight this girl who's ready. And I'm like, I wasn't supposed to compete. My mom hears the conversation and she's like, Kola, you need to go. If you don't go, you're gonna like never like live with yourself. You're gonna regret it that you never at least gave it a try. My dad wasn't home. Thank goodness for Christina's at the time, because that's where he was at. That's what he was doing. So she was like, your dad's not home. I'll take care of the baby. You go. So I am like, what do I even take? I'm grabbing like random things. Like, what do I take to a fight? I've never been in one before, like in a cage, like organized. I get there, go through the whole experience. I immediately fell in love. It wasn't the attention. It was the feeling that I felt inside, like in my heart. It wasn't the fact that there was like hundreds of people that were clapping. It wasn't the lights. It wasn't the music. It was just the feeling that I did something that is almost impossible for most people to do, to be okay with being put into a cage and stand across from somebody that is there to literally try to beat the crap out of you.
Yep.
It is the worst feeling in the world. It makes you want to like throw up, poop your pants, and pee all at the same time. But you're like, holding it all in, that's not going to happen because you're going to sit there and you're going to throw hands. And so I just loved how I felt about myself and what I was capable of. And in my mind, I'm like, this isn't it. Like, there's more. Like, I have to keep doing this. So started my MMA journey. I think I fought for about 2 years under that gym, outgrew that gym very quickly because I just knew that there was something more. I found a new gym under another one of my current professors, Jeremy Harrington, and he introduced me to a gi. And in my mind, I'm like, you are not getting me into that thing. Nope. No, sir. No, thank you. Nope. I will continue to do my MMA thing. And that's it. They literally forced me into a gi. And it was, I struggled with, which is very strange. A lot of women struggle with this. And I think a lot of girls, like, they'll identify it as anxiety and like depression sometimes, but a lot of women suffer with claustrophobia. So women will sit there and freak out and be like, I'm having a panic attack. I'm like, are you sure? Because you're in a confined space and you can't control where you're going right now. So what are we doing? So when people are able to properly identify it and kind of decipher the two, it really helps out with girls like MMA Journey and with jujitsu. So that was my idea. Don't put this code on me. I don't like it. I don't like being restricted. I don't like that feeling of lack of control. And so, you know, he took me to a competition. I started falling in love with the idea of having this gi on, and it felt more along the lines of self-defense because it is simulating what other people are wearing. You are rarely ever going to find yourself in a defensive situation where the other person is naked. That's just completely honest. Like, it's very rare that happens. But, you know, being someone who struggled, I'm a survivor of domestic violence, sexual assault, and sexual harassment by law enforcement. And jiu-jitsu is probably the longest lasting and most loyal relationship I've ever had in my life. And it's something that I know that I won't ever go back on. And that's what started. It was literally an 18-year-old res girl who was struggling with every single aspect of her life and trying to figure out what she was going to do with life, and having even suicidal thoughts in that time, and trying to figure out what was it that was going to get me to the next day to even want to open my eyes again. What was it that was going to keep me from, you know, just trying to crawl into a bottle to make everything just okay for a little bit. I found sobriety within this journey. I've been sober for over 7 years now, and
congratulations.
Thank you. And I have to, you know, I have to give props where they're due. I have a lot of people in my life that support me. Obviously, my parents, my boys give me a reason. They gave me my bigger why. My husband has been very, very supportive in my entire journey, especially when it came to domestic violence. And then a lot of this work that's been happening. And, but my coach was probably one of the best professors that I could ever find and could have, because he let me know that when you step onto the mat, you're equals with everyone there, regardless of the color of your belt. As human beings, we're all equal. He told me it's okay if we have law enforcement on the mat, along with, you know, felonies, like felons and criminals, and then we have some maybe ex-gangbangers, or people who are homeless, or people who are struggling with addiction, or people who are like multimillionaires. Like, we have like a wide variety of people, but once you step foot on this mat, you are completely equal, and no one is better than the next, regardless of that belt color, and treat each other with kindness and respect. And for him to have seen me for who I was and not just a person to roll with on the mat, he said, you know, you have potential, and I see it, and I want you to continue to push that and go through it. And so I think that's the presence that jiu-jitsu has had in my life has been, it changed the trajectory of my life. It changed me from, yo, I want to be a fighter and be in the cage and do all this stuff, to there's so much more to that. Like, you have the potential to be an amazing human being through a sport like this. And so that's what jiu-jitsu has been like for me. And, you know, it's been 11 years. Next July will be 12. And I mean, for people that are looking to get into the sport, I know I had a lot of people this past year really congratulate on the brown belt, and we all aim to get a black belt. But if there's anything that jiu-jitsu teaches us, is that this is an entire game and life of evolution. There's no stop to it. We even have, you know, my professor, Gustavo Prius, is, I want to say he's a 3rd or 4th degree black belt, and he is still like, I am learning absolutely every single day. And I know he says that truly and honestly from his heart, because it's not just him leveling up his game on the mat, it's him leveling up in life, his mindset, his heart set. And it's just this continuation of just changes and growth. And I think that's probably what I love most about the sport, is we all see this end goal, like everybody's, oh, you got a black belt, you killed the game. No, no. It's literally still knocking me on my ass, and I'm still learning things. But I love it. And I think anyone that's in it knows exactly what that feeling is and what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we're going to be friends. But one of the things also that you pointed out is something that I feel like women especially, they struggle with this, is you found a really good gym. It seems like you got a really good gym and a really good coach. And I think a lot of people, they kind of, through, you know, financial, through geographical restraints, they kind of, sometimes they don't find the best fitted gym for them, or they feel like, I don't want to leave. I always tell people all the time, like, if you think there's a better alternative, leave. Like, find a gym. Because when you find a gym in like a coach, in a community, like in a group of people who you just like really rock with, and you can tell that, like, despite the wins, the losses, all that, they are there for you for jiu-jitsu and beyond, that is like priceless to your journey. So yeah, it sounds like you found a really good team, and that goes such a far way.
Absolutely. And I think there's something to be said that when you're looking for gyms, and that was what was really hard for me about that 2-year mark, is and honestly, for the life of me, I cannot remember who it was that told me that, was, I think you've pretty much outgrown this gym. And I mean, and that goes with life too. Sometimes you have friends that, you know, they're in your life for a certain amount of chapters and they're done. And it might be vice versa. You might have served your purpose in that person's story, and it might be time for you to go. And so when you're looking for gyms and when you're kind of navigating that journey, you have to be really honest with yourself, is, and it is a very selfish sport. MMA and jiu-jitsu is very selfish. And there comes points in your journey is that you have to like think, is this serving me, or is this taking away more of what I'm really wanting to do for myself? And saying, it's okay if I always have this phrase in my mind, am I too sacred for this space, or is this space too sacred for me right now? And there's been a couple of gyms that I've been to, and I'm like, yo, this is like really, honestly, the gym that I'm in right now, I could have started training with them years ago, but when I went there, they're very very traditional and very like just clean and professional. Like, Gustavo's from Brazil, so I mean, he's just very about it. And so when I first went there, I was like, I want to train here. And I could have, like, I really could have, because my coach, Jeremy, was there and it was available to me. But I had to really sit and reflect, like, am I ready to be here? Like, for myself, I know they want me here and they're like ready for me to be here, but do I have the mental capacity to carry myself and represent this gym the way that I feel like it should be represented? Just like how I represent my people. Am I ready for that? And I had that reflection for a long time. And then when I finally, started making these steps and making these waves, I'm like, all right, I think I'm ready for that level up. So sometimes you have to ask yourself, the question is, am I ready for that space? Or is that space ready for me? Is that person ready for me? Or am I ready for that person? Whatever the case may be, I think that's what a lot of people have to think about, is it all translates over to our everyday life too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God, this has been so fantastic. I have loved speaking with you. So just to remind everyone, we've just launched our Affirm and Amplify series. We're gonna be doing a new cause every quarter. So we got you set for the next one, and then we'll post information on our website at www.themightydames.com if you wanna throw your name in the ring. Yeah, there we go. Your name in the ring to get your cause to get some more attention towards. Please let us know. We're open. I have none. This isn't about me. I don't have any causes that I'm not really picking any of them. It's first come, first served, honestly. And it's a great way, again, to raise support for your community, for your cause, to get them some money, to just, start a conversation with people about something that's very important to you. Because what I've learned, especially through this whole pandemic, through this whole seems like this other racial awakening that our country has had, that is I say the word ignorance. I don't mean it in a rude way. I mean as in lack of knowledge, a lack of information. There's been a lot of ignorance that has just been floating around for generations about so much, that people are just now opening their eyes to how ignorant they've truly been. I feel like right now we're at a time where, yes, there are stubborn people, but I can't think of a time since I've been alive that people have been more willing to learn about things they don't know. So let's make this information readily available to them. So like I said, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been awesome.
Well, thank you so much. And I love the work that you're doing, this Affirm and Amplify. I mean, I want to say it to anyone else that's kind of looking into these types of spaces and this type of work, is that don't let anyone ever tell you that you don't have a voice. You've always had a voice. It's always been there. It's just that now ears are ready to listen.
Absolutely.
Now it's the time to speak up and be loud about it. And again, Tori, I want to thank you so much for having me. This has been a blessing and an honor. And I'm just really excited to continue this work and excited to see where this project goes for you.
Heck yeah. And then also we're gonna have we both have our first rash guard. That's the benefit. We got ours ahead of time. So you'll see some pictures of us rocking ours, so you'll know what to expect. And that'll be dropping. We'll probably give you a little sneak peek later this month. But stay tuned to January and you'll get the full shebang. All right, guys, we'll talk to you again. Bye.